we value so greatly in this committee. So thank you. I will be heading to the Transportation Environment Committee to do a vote, and then I will be back to discuss this bill further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis George. The first measure that the committee is going to consider this morning on the agenda is Bill 25-739, the St. Elizabeth East Ramada Redevelopment Act of 2024. Chairman Mendelson, at the request of the mayor, introduced Bill 25-739 on March 1st, 2024. The bill was referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development with comments from the Committee on Transportation and the Environment on March 5th of this year. As introduced, Bill 25-739 would allow for the disposition of certain district-owned real property, Lot 842 and Square 5868-S, to the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority and the district's acquisition of adjacent property owned by WMATA. The exchange of these parcels would facilitate the reconfiguration of the WMATA bus loop and kiss and ride facilities at the Congress Heights Metro Rail Station and allow for the construction of a new District of Columbia Public Library facility to serve Ward 8. I'm going to turn to the witnesses who are going to testify on that measure. It looks like we don't have any public witnesses who have signed up to testify, so we're going to turn to our government witnesses. Katrina Owen, Richard Reyes, Gavin Jaspreet Power with the who's with the District of Columbia Public Libraries as well. Maybe not. If y'all can raise your right hand to be sworn in. As is the policy of this committee, we swear in all government witnesses. So do you swear or affirm on a penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide before the Council of the District of Columbia and this Committee on Business and Economic Development is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you both. You may be seated. Ms. Owens, I'll turn to you first, I believe, for testimony. And good morning to you both.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman McDuffie, members and staff of the Committee on Business and Economic Development. My name is Latrina Owens, and I am the Executive Director of the St. Elizabeth East Redevelopment within the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. I'm here to testify in support of St. Elizabeth's WMATA Redevelopment Act of 2024. The approval of this act would authorize the mayor to dispose of approximately 1.29 acres of real property owned by the District of Columbia located on the St. Elizabeth East campus and known as Parcel 16, and acquire 1.4 acres of real property owned by WMATA located at 1290 Alabama Avenue Southeast in the District of Columbia. I want to express my gratitude for convening this hearing and acknowledge the significant contributions from the community, especially past and current members of ANC-8C, the residents of Congress Heights, Ward 8 Councilmember Trayon White and his team, along with all the neighbors, community members whose efforts have been instrumental in advancing the redevelopment of the historic St. Elizabeth East. Parcel 16 sits within St. Elizabeth East, one of the district's largest redevelopment projects. The Max Robinson Center is the latest project delivered as part of the transformation of St. Elizabeth East campus. In addition to developer-led projects, including the district towns, the residences of St. Elizabeth, and the Sycamore Oak Retail Village, the mayor has invested nearly $900 million in redevelopment. This investment includes the opening of the 4,200-seat entertainment and sports arena, the 801 East Men's Shelter, a 750-space parking garage, and the roadway network. In June 2023, the district celebrated the topping off of the Cedar Hill Regional Medical Center GW Health facility, and the full-service hospital is expected to be completed in 2025. On July 2021, Mayor Bowser announced that a new full-service DC Public Library would be constructed on Parcel 16 of the St. Elizabeth East campus in Congress Heights. The new facility will replace the existing 4,952 square foot Parklands Turner Library with a state-of-the-art 20,000 square foot facility. The expanded library will feature a range of collaboration and quiet spaces with seating and collections tailored for children, teens, and adults. This new library aligns with the library's facilities master plan, which outlines the next decade of planning for library facilities citywide. The plan emphasizes addressing equity issues by replacing the system's smallest libraries with larger, more accessible spaces. On October 2022, DMPED submitted an unsolicited proposal to WMATA for a land swap with the District of Columbia to build a new DCPL library on WMATA's surface parking lot. This was the result of standard real estate investments purchasing 7 properties in Ward 8 adjacent to the St. Elizabeth's East Campus, including the southern entrance of the Congress Heights Metro. WMATA indicated potential plans to develop the northern entrance, which could lead to the construction of a residential building that would obstruct the library's visibility on parcel 16. By relocating the library to this site, residents would gain significantly improved access from Alabama Avenue, and the library's increased visibility would make it easier for the community to take advantage of its resources. As a result, the new location would become a key focal point, encouraging broader community participation and strengthening the relationship with the library. As part of the swap, WMATA will gain the opportunity to develop parcel 16 in a manner that complements the overall aesthetic and character of the campus situated behind the library. This development will contribute to a balanced mix of residential and community spaces, supporting broader efforts to promote connectivity, accessibility, and thoughtful urban planning, all while ensuring the library remains a central and visible community resource. The proposed development of parcel 16 will adhere to the 2012 master plan, which envisioned over 5 million square feet of mixed-use development on the St. Elizabeth's East site. DMPED is requesting that the council act on this legislation without delay, as the new Congress Heights Library is scheduled to open in early 2027. In addition to serving as a community anchor, the library will provide essential resources such as access to knowledge, educational services, and technology. It will offer local youth a safe haven where they can access computers, study spaces, and enriching programs. This vital resource will help bridge the digital divide, supporting learning, fostering personal growth, and contributing to the overall well-being and development of Congress Heights and the surrounding communities. Thank you for your time and consideration of this legislation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
And thank you for your testimony this morning. We're going to turn next to Executive Director Reyes Gavilan. Thank you for joining us this morning. You can begin your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Councilmember McDuffie and members of the Committee on Business and Economic Development. I am Richard Reyes Gavilan, Executive Director of the DC Public Library. I'm pleased to deliver testimony regarding DC Public Library support of B 25-739, the St. Elizabeth's East WMATA Redevelopment Act of 2024. In DC Public Library's 2020 Library Facilities Master Plan, Next Libris, the library committed to delivering services more equitably across the city. The plan recognized that some of our small libraries, including our smallest, the Parklands Turner Library in Congress Heights, primarily serve low-income communities. As part of the commitment to address historical inequities in the size and location of libraries, we sought and received funding to construct a new full-service library in Congress Heights that will be 4 times larger than the current 5,000 square foot Parklands Turner Library. We're thankful to DMPED and WMATA for enabling the proposed full-service library to be located at the Congress Heights Metro Station. The new library will allow a full range of services to be offered to Ward 8 residents, including convening spaces, meeting rooms, and a generous reading area for children, teens, and adults. It will also have a lot of firsts for the library system, including being our first transit-oriented library, and feature unique services such as a library of things and a recording studio, as well as pursue the net zero energy goal in alignment with the district's climate forward commitment. The new library is currently in the design phase. The project team has conducted community engagement to inform the look, feel, and services offered in the library. DC Public Library is responsible for the construction and operations of the building, and our project team is in lockstep with DMPED and WMATA to design, engineer, and navigate the complexities of this innovative project. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify in support of this project, and I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you both for your testimony this morning. Just a few questions. And I'll begin my questions with Ms. Owens and Demphead. The St. Elizabeth East is one of the major current mixed-use development priorities for the District of Columbia, as you acknowledged in your testimony. And I understand that the land we're getting back will be the site of a new public library, as Executive Director testified. How will WMATA develop the 1.29 acres that the district is swapping? If you can give us some insights about that.
Yeah, so as you know, St. Elizabeth East is a master plan project. So the council approved the 2012 master plan for St. Elizabeth East. So any development that they do place there has to be consistent with already the current zoning and already what was outlined in the master plan. And additionally, whatever is put there would have to be approved by the Commission of Fine Arts and also DC Historic Preservation.
Okay. Yeah, no, I know the master plan has been published for quite some time, and I think we're going on 12 years. What kinds of community engagement have you done around this, and what are you hearing, if anything, from Ward 8 residents in particular about this swap? Are they supportive of the swap? Any concerns being raised regarding redevelopment plans?
They are in support of it, and DMPED conducted a properly noticed surplus hearing on January 9th, 2020, just to talk about all of the parcels. I think and I'm certain that Rich can also attest to this. The community is very excited about it, and also DCPL already, they do an outreach that's about a 2-year period before constructing any library.
Okay. And I'll ask Executive Director Reyes Gavilan when I turn to him next, which will be shortly. One last question for you, Ms. Owens. What's next for this project if this legislation passes?
So what's next is that the council is authorizing us, as you would in an LDDA, to dispose of parcel 16. But in this case, we're also acquiring property, acquiring the surface parking lot for the purposes of building a public library. Without that, we will not be able to go through the disposition and acquisition process. But what is guiding our timeline to dispose of this process is the library's timeline to be able to construct a full service library by 2027.
Yeah, I'll note you mentioned that in your testimony. So I'm going to turn on that note to Executive Director Reyes Gavilan for a few questions. One important aspect of this project is the construction of a new library in Congress Heights, which we touched on with Ms. Owens, one that's located next to a metro station. Can you elaborate what that will mean for access to Ward 8 students and others in the community? How many public libraries are actually in Ward 8? I'd love to know that, if you can share that number and what this means for the community surrounding that area.
Sure. So we love designing libraries near transit hubs and retail. Those are two things that go well with libraries because it provides not only immediate access to people who are walking to the library, but it gives an opportunity for people who are either taking the bus or the metro. We've always envisioned our new Congress Heights Library to be a destination in Ward 8. Currently, our other libraries in Ward 8, including Anacostia and the Bellevue Library, are, while they're close to 20,000 square feet, they don't have the generous size community rooms that we would be constructing for Congress Heights. We really see this as being something that will attract people from around, not just Ward 8 and Ward 7, but even people from Ward 6 and further north. So it's a destination spot for us. It's a refuge for members of the community. This is something that we've heard over and over throughout our entire year or more of community engagement, that people want a safe space, a place that they can love, a space that reminds them of all that's good about their community, and we're really excited to get started.
And you just mentioned the community room is one of the features of the new library, and you also mentioned, I think, in your testimony that the current library nearby, the Parklands Turner Library, is the smallest one in the DCPL system. Are there any other things, though, that the community can look forward to with a new Congress Heights library that they wouldn't already have in the existing libraries in Ward 8 beyond the community room? And then I understand that, I think you may have mentioned that this is or at least I read somewhere in preparation for this hearing, that this is the first transit-oriented library. Although I would have thought that like Shaw or some of the other ones that are like right across the street from a metro
I
would be
think-
transit-oriented.
I think this is the first one that's designed with the metro entrance in mind.
Okay.
In order to make sort of wayfinding and walk. So this new library is going to have two entrances. It's going to have one entrance to the south, right off the metro entrance. It's also going to have an entrance further into St. Elizabeth's campus.
Okay.
So it creates a really nice sort of circulation area for people either coming from Alabama or the St. Elizabeth's campus. Insofar as what special features this library will offer, it's going to have two spaces that are sort of outdoor meeting spaces that are enclosed within the library. So it'll be the first library in DC that will have sort of interior courtyards,
Okay.
which is something that community members were really interested in having, something that they could feel safe, that wouldn't necessarily be wouldn't be bothered by buses or traffic or anything like that. So again, stressing this idea of the library as a refuge. That's one thing I also mentioned in my testimony, something like the Library of Things, which you may know is a opportunity for residents to borrow things other than books. So let's say they need a hand mixer or tools or all sorts of other things that you may only need once in a very long while, rather than having to buy it. You can participate in this this Library of Things. A lot of the students we spoke to talked about having something like a recording studio. So we're going to build one of those in there. Lots of opportunities to design this library really in a way that speaks to the changes that we've seen across the city in terms of how libraries are being used. It allows us to devote so much of the space to people as opposed to like, objects like books. So it's really going to be a community education space. And yeah, I think that's probably about it.
Okay. I know that it sounds like it's going to be a great library from all the things that you've shared and what I've read in terms of the background. But I do also note that it's a little further from schools like Turner Elementary. Have you heard any specific concerns from any parents or any folks in the school community about the distance, or how have you incorporated any feedback you've gotten in terms of trying to make sure that the access doesn't diminish given the location of this one?
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I mean, it's only half a mile away. It's about a 10-minute walk away, the Congress Heights Metro. And in the grand scheme of things, it will be accessible to more students. But of course, the folks who are currently across the street will be impacted. The truth is that the current Parklands Turner Library is so small at under 5,000 square feet. It's not even serving the Parklands Turner kids very well. So I think that despite the fact that it'll be a little bit less convenient, although that Alabama Avenue corridor and kids ride free so they can get to the library in a matter of a couple of minutes, if they don't feel comfortable walking the 10 minutes to the library, generally everyone is going to be a lot happier with the services that they get at the new library than at Parklands Turner, which we're really eager to move away from.
And for folks at home who are listening and wondering, I know Ms. Owens emphasized the timeline here, but I'd love for you just to give people an idea of what the timeline is for the new library and when it's scheduled to open. That'd be great. We can end on that note.
Great. So we are pretty much done with design, although we still have some things to tie up. Then ideally, if we're breaking ground in end of this year, early 2025, typically it'll be about 2 years. And so we would look forward to opening the library sometime in 2027.
Any specific feedback that you all have heard from advisory neighborhood commissioners or civic leadership in the community that you want to put on the record? Any specific opposition or support from any of those community stakeholders?
Zero opposition that we've heard. We've involved community members right from the very beginning, including serving as advisors in terms of the selection of the design build firms, Turner Construction, along with Perkins and Will Architects, who designed our beautiful Southwest Library that opened a couple of years ago. And I will just echo the sentiments of one of the library's chief proponents, Brenda Richardson, who serves as the president of the Friends of the Parklands Turner Library and was a former board member of the DC Public Library Board of Trustees. She has talked over and over and over again about community in trauma and needing a space that is a refuge, needing a space that is loved, and needing a space that will provide optimism for the community. And that's what we've been stressing with our design team, and we've heard that over and over again. And I know that that Brenda and everyone else would be happy with what we'll have achieved.
Yeah, Ms. Richardson is a fixture in that Ward 8 community. So I'm
You
glad
bet.
to know that her input has been incorporated into what you all are doing.
Very much so.
Okay.
She's very happy.
Let me just end by, you mentioned, so you all have already identified the firm that's gonna manage construction for the site.
Yes.
Which firm is that?
It's Perkins Will is doing the design.
Is it a design build?
It is a
RFP?
design build, yes.
Okay.
And Turner Construction. It's the same team was selected that built our award-winning Southwest Library that opened during the pandemic.
Okay. Turner Construction and Perkins
And Will.
and Will. Are either of those firms minority-owned or women-led?
We've met all of our goals around minority, small business participation. I don't want to speak on the record. I think that Perkins Will may have it, but
We can follow up with
Yeah,
that.
great.
Obviously, it's a priority for this committee to where possible, where the capacity exists, to make sure that we're engaging
Absolutely.
minority-owned CBE firms in the District of Columbia.
Yeah.
But the CBE, is there a subcontracting plan already in place as well?
absolutely, yes.
All right. Could you all follow up with us to make sure we have that?
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
appreciate it. Thank you. I don't have anything else in terms of questions at the moment. Is there anything else that either of you would like to add to the record before we move on to the next bill?
Nope.
I just want to add just one thing about support, for the DC Public Library, that they did host a community outreach at Sycamore and Oak about a month ago. And they had over about 1,500 people come out to provide input on the new public
Oh,
library.
wow. That's significant. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you all.
Yeah, we worked with the Library Foundation, who accepted comments from the community and also provided little vouchers so that community members could get some food at the Sycamore and Oak retail shop. So
Okay.
supporting small businesses while we were there. It was a really great event.
Yeah, I
Thank
was
you
at
for bringing that
a
up.
fantastic event yesterday where Dion's was catering the event. I know her and her business partner have a presence right there at Sycamore and Oak, so we always enjoy engaging with them when we're over in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a
So,
great space.
yeah, awesome. And I believe it may be, I don't know if it's today, but I think there's a birthday one of you all have today, is Miss Owens. So
Oh,
we'll wish you a happy birthday. We appreciate you coming
Thank
down
you.
in person to join us and testify on your birthday. So thank you for that.
yeah, great.
You all enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
We're actually gonna take Bill 25-746. Hold on for a second. We're gonna actually do Bill 25-746 next. That's the 1,000 U Street Northwest Property Tax Clarification and Limited Grant Making Amendment Act of 2024, which was introduced on March 12th of this year by Councilmember Nadeau, Ward 1, and referred to the committee on March 19th, 2024. As introduced, this measure would ensure that Section 47- 1045 of the DC Code, which has granted a property tax abatement to the lots at 1000 U Street Northwest since 1998, continues to provide that relief despite a name change of the Prince Hall Free and Accepted Mason in order of the Eastern Star Charitable Educational Foundation. It would also give limited grant-making authority for the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development to support activation of the corner commercial space at 1000 U Street Northwest. Just pause for a second to make sure that we haven't been joined by any colleagues virtually. I don't see anyone, so we're gonna call our public witnesses up to testify on this measure. Glenn Ruffin and Robert Vincent Branham, both here. You can come on up. And you can have a seat. And good morning to you both. Thank you for joining us in person at the council. We're going to turn first to Glenn Ruffin. You begin your testimony. You each will have 3 minutes to provide testimony.
Chairperson.
You definitely have a nice deep voice, and I want to make sure that we're catching you at home on the monitor. So if you could just hit the button in front of you, you'll see it turn red. There you go. It's on. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, and to the chairperson, council member Kenyon McDuffie, and other members of the Committee on Business and Economic Development, and to our Ward 1 councilperson, Brianne Nadeau, who kindly introduced this bill for us. Thank you for your partnership and your continued support. I am Glenn Ruffin. I'm the chairman of the Board of Directors for the Prince Hall Free and Accepted Masons Ordered Eastern Star Educational Foundation. I'm excited to be here, and I'm here to testify in support of the bill for 1000 U Street Property Tax Clarification and Limited Grant Writing Act of 2024. I appreciate how busy the council is, and I respect the council's time, and I have presented a detailed statement to be placed in the record. I'm very thankful the committee has taken the time to meet with us. I'd like to provide a little context around our organization. The Charitable Foundation is the owner of our building on 1000 U Street, and it is the foundation that is requesting to resume its tax exempt status. The membership of the foundation consists of about 3,500 Masons and Eastern Stars throughout the jurisdiction of the District of Columbia. The Tax Relief Act of 1998 provided a relief under the conditions that the foundation carry in it for the purpose of its activities and charitable work, and is not used for exclusive commercial purposes. Our building has not been used exclusively for commercial purposes in the past, and we do not have any intentions to do that in the future. Our organization has carried some mystique about it in the past, and our neighbors see men in black suits, women in white dresses that come in and out of our building constantly. I assure you that we are not a secret society, and our organization has done lots of great work here in this city for a very long time. Our building was first built in 1922, and the Grand Master at the time was the same Jesse Mitchell, who is the founder of Industrial Bank. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here. Our building has been used for general elections and various other support functions here in the city. And we are happy to be a part of the U Street corridor. Sadly, the historical Black organizations on U Street, like Ben's Chili Bowl, Lee's Flower Shop, Industrial Bank, and the Masonic Temple, are the last 4 in this city. And we hope that this council will approve the survival of our organization here in Washington, D.C. Thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you for your testimony this morning. Let's turn next to my friend Robert Vincent Branham. Thanks for joining us in person. You can begin your testimony.
Greetings and salutations, and good morning, Chairman McDuffie and members of the committee. I am Robert Vincent Branham, third vice president of the NAACP DC branch. Akosha Ali is president, and Carmel Henry is first vice president. Founded in 1909, the NAACP is the nation's oldest and largest civil rights organization. Its members throughout the District of Columbia, the United States, and the world are premier advocates for civil rights and human rights. The mission of NAACP is to ensure the political, educational, social, and economic quality of rights for all persons and to eliminate racial hatred and racial discrimination. Mr. Chairman, the NAACP DC branch supports fully Bill 25-0746, the 1000 U Street Northwest Property Tax Clarification and Limited Grant Making Amendment Act of 2024. The NAACP DC branch commends Councilmember Breon Nadeau for her leadership and introduction of this legislation. In summary, the bill will clarify Section 47-1045 of the DC Code, which granted a property tax abatement to the lots at 1000 U Street since 1998. Additionally, this bill authorizes limited grant-making authority to the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development to support activation of the corner commercial space at 1000 U Street Northwest. Prince Hall, Free and Accepted Mason, and Order of the Eastern Star have been a vital part of the culture of the District of Columbia. My grandparents were members. I became a member during my brief residency in Tyler, Texas, many years ago. The NAACP DC branch, headquartered at 1000 U Street, supports this legislation and stands eager to partner in the revised commercial and community use and public engagement this site offers, and which jointly our two organizations provide. Thank you.
And thank you both for your testimony this morning. Just a couple of questions. As was noted in the testimony by Glenn Ruffin, the Prince Hall Grand Lodge is located in the heart of U Street, and it has had some major changes over the years. I think it's really still undergoing some of that change. Howard University has plans to redevelop some of its properties in and around the U Street corridor. This bill specifically has a provision giving DMPEG grant-making authority to support activation of ground floor commercial space in your building. What, if anything, can you share about plans if this were to pass?
Yeah, so we're in negotiations right now with a potential client to rent our space. It's a bank that wants to rent the space downstairs in our building. We also use the second floor ballroom for space. As I said before, we use that for the election board and various other clients as well.
Okay.
So we're just happy about the ability and our thought process is trying to rent the space to make it more usable for Washington, D.C. and its residents.
You mentioned some of the institutions, Black-owned, that have been in that corridor for decades and really have been known to really highlight some of the wonderful history for African Americans in Washington, D.C. along that corridor, like Ben's Chili Bowl, like Industrial Bank, which recently celebrated, I think, its 90th anniversary, like Lee's Flowers, which I recently visited and chatted with some of the family. Talk about what it means to have the Masons as an institution in that corridor, but then also talk about what, if any, feedback you've heard from the community, support, opposition with respect to this measure.
Yeah, so we've actually been in that corridor since 1825 is when the first lodge came down from Pennsylvania. We started our Grand Lodge in 1848 here on that corridor. And again, Jesse Mitchell was the Grand Master of our organization who created our building and had it built in 1922. So we've been a huge fixture on the U Street corridor and in a city that we love. We've done a lot in the community. Recently, we did cleanup, DC cleanup We intend to expand that. This year, we did it for Ward 1 and Ward 8. And next year, we're going to have a DC-wide cleanup. We haven't had any opposition. I know Frank Smith is also a member, former member of the DC Council. He's right beside us, our neighbor with the African American Civil War Memorial. He is very supportive of us. We're using some of our space to assist in him advertising and marketing for his museum as well. So we haven't had anyone that is in opposition of this bill, to my knowledge.
Great, glad to hear it. Talk a little bit about when you and others with the Masons actually realized that you had a problem with the tax abatement enacted for 1000 U Street Northwest, and if you have that information present, how much of the annual real property tax is on the property?
I think the annual real property tax was, I think, 300,000 per year, if I'm not mistaken. And we were trying to realign our foundation to ensure that we were separating any charitable monies from the retail space that we have on the first floor of the building. And in the process, we started a new foundation to make sure that we were aligned appropriately with the IRS rules. In that, we didn't realize that the property, would fell under the charitable foundation. And the name change caused the tax abatement to be with the previous property and not with the current property. And so it was at that time that we found that we needed to get this renewed.
Have you had the opportunity to review the tax abatement financial analysis that our office of the Chief Financial Officer prepared?
Yes, sir. Not in grave detail, but yes, sir. I have reviewed it. Yep.
All right, and they're going to testify next, but I just wanted to for their testimony, which we'll hear next, I got an advanced copy of it. But it indicates that you all are contemplating another change in ownership structure to a title holding company. Is that your understanding?
Yes, we have the 501c2 is the title holding company. The building is going to be transferred to them just to cover what exactly I was just talking about.
And when do you anticipate that being finalized?
Once we get, that's hopefully going to be finalized this year. We're trying to get through the tax abatement issues. And once we get through the tax abatement issues, then we're going to get that resolved.
And I don't want to speak for them, obviously, but and we'll hear from them next, as I mentioned. But the OCFO's position is that the bill needs to more precisely name that holding company instead of just a blanket extension for any successor in interest. Will you keep the committee staff updated about when you finalize the ownership change?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay.
We absolutely will.
I think this is an important part that I'd like to get you to weigh in on first, if you could, Mr. Ruffin, and I'll turn to Mr. Brandon to see if he has any thoughts on this. But I'd love to hear what the impact will be to your organization, to that corridor, and to the history of African Americans on the U Street corridor if this exemption was not to be restored.
Absolutely. I think just from a historical perspective, it's huge. Our organization's been in this city for a very long time, as we spoke. But more than that, we put about, over the last several years, we put about $1 million plus $1.5 million in the city with the scholarships to youths. We've got a group of brothers and sisters that are throughout this city on a regular basis doing volunteerism. And the volunteerism that we're doing in the city is you can't place a number on it. I was just at Garfield Terrace, families going up and doing Thanksgiving baskets there and seeing the faces of all the residents, seeing us show up with those Thanksgiving baskets. We do the Ward 1 residents senior luncheon, and to see our mature members of our community come to the building and just have an absolutely wonderful time dancing and enjoying themselves. there's not a price that you can put on that. And that to me, I think is indicative of what our organization has done over many decades, and we intend to continue to do. If we are unable to get this resolved, our organization is going to go away in Washington, D.C. Our survival depends on an approval of this committee. And we're hoping that, that you are going to approve that for us so we can continue to do the hard work that we've been doing to make this city as great as it is. And we certainly appreciate all the work that that this committee and our elected officials here in Washington, D.C. continue to do. We want to partner with you and make sure that we're helping you do some of the hard work that you're trying to do.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Briefly, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chairman, I grew up in Southeast DC, but I am familiar with the work through my grandparents who were members, and the photograph I have of my grandfather in his regalia with his brothers still hangs in my home. When I relocated for a short period of time to Tyler, Texas, I became a member. That history of that corridor is vital to the future of the District of Columbia and to what it means to be a part of history and to remember our legacy and to provide for the future for our children. I commend you for holding this hearing. And I also commend Councilwoman Nadeau for introducing this vital piece of legislation and to recognize the contributions that are being made by historic Black organizations, and that we must move forward together to provide for the common humanity and decency. And I want to thank you for your leadership on this, and also Councilwoman Lewis George. You know, it takes much to come forward and to show that you care. And this legislation and your leadership shows that you care.
I appreciate that, and I won't speak for anybody else, but to be candid, for me, it doesn't take much to come forward when you know and understand the impact that organizations have had in the District of Columbia. And I am extraordinarily familiar with the impact that goes well beyond the U Street corridor of the Masons in the District of Columbia and across the country. So this is something that this committee should be doing, that this council should be paying close attention to, and with the support of the members of this committee, we will be moving it forward. So I'm going to turn to see if Councilmember Lewis George has any questions on this for the public witnesses for this bill. Otherwise, I'm going to move to the Office of the Chief Financial Officer for their testimony.
No, I'm just in full support and thank the witnesses for their continued work and advocacy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for your testimony this morning. We're going to turn next to the witnesses for Bill 25-746. Representing the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, I believe, is Nancy Fox, and others, whoever else is testifying. And I will make sure that I swear you all in before you all are seated to provide your testimony. You can raise your right hand. Do you each swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide to the Council of the District of Columbia and the Committee on Business and Economic Development is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you very much. You can be seated. Good morning to you both. Thanks for joining. You can begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman McDuffie and members of the Committee on Business and Economic Development. I'm Nancy Fox, Senior Policy Analyst in the Office of Finance and Treasury and the Office of the Chief Financial Officer. And I'm here with Mr. Basil Bettina, who is also with the OCFO. I'm pleased to testify for the OCFO on Bill 25-746, the 1000 U Street Northwest Property Tax Clarification and Limited Grant Making Amendment Act of 2024. My testimony will cover only the tax exemption provisions of the bill. The bill would amend DC Official Code Section 47-1045, which has provided a real property tax exemption since 1998 for the commercial property in Masonic Lodge located at 1000 U Street Northwest, known for tax assessment purposes as lots 37 and 828 in square 333. We'll call this the property. The amendments are intended to restore the tax exemption lost after a change in the property's owner. In 2022, the property's ownership transferred to Prince Hall Free and Accepted Mason and Order of the Eastern Star Charitable Educational Foundation. We'll call them the applicant of the Prince Hall Foundation, from a predecessor organization, the Prince Hall Freemason and Eastern Star Charitable Foundation, the predecessor entity, as part of an organizational restructuring. The predecessor entity was subsequently dissolved. The applicant is an IRC Section 501c3 organization operating in the same manner as the predecessor entity. The change in the property owner made the property ineligible for the exemption provided in Section 47-1045. The bill allows for the exemption of the property under the current ownership, provided it is used for the current owner's purposes and activities, and further provides for refunds of any tax payments made for tax years 2023 and 2024. The existing version of Section 47-1045 exempts the property as long as it is not used for exclusively commercial purposes. The OCFO reviewed unaudited financial statements provided by the applicant for the years 2022, 2023, and through August 29th, 2024. The applicants submitted financial statements for itself and a subsidiary entity, the Prince Hall Free and Accepted Mason and Order of the Eastern Star Title Holding Company, which we'll call the Title Holding Company. The applicant plans to transfer ownership of the property to the Title Holding Company, which manages the property and transfers the property's rental revenue, net of property's expenses, to the applicant. The applicant also receives revenue from individuals and other Masonic organizations, as well as other sources of fundraising. The combined financial picture of the applicant and its title holding company indicates they have been operating in a deficit. The operating deficit has been due to a decline in their combined revenues and increased building expenses, including payments made towards the property's 2022 and 2023 real property tax liability. The applicant's current assets, its bank account funds, have mostly been depleted by these operating deficits. Given the applicant's current trend of income and expenses and its current level of liquid assets, the applicant would not be able to pay its annual real property tax liability or its past due tax obligations. Although the property owned by the applicant is a valuable asset, tapping the property's equity to pay taxes would add debt repayments to the applicant's ongoing expenses, making such a financing financially unsustainable. Although it is possible that future operation of the property may provide for greater net revenues that could cover future year tax payments, the OCF finds, based on the applicant's current financial condition, that the exemption is financially necessary for it to meet its fiscal needs. While a separate fiscal impact statement will be prepared, the estimated value of the exemption is $2,333,000 during the financial plan period. The estimate includes all taxes past due, refunds for any amounts paid by the applicant towards the tax year 2023 liabilities, penalties, estimates of interest or on unpaid amounts for tax years 2023 through 2025, as well as projected tax liabilities for tax years 2025 through 2028. We'll talk briefly about some recommended amendments. There are provisions of the bill that OCFO would like to bring to your attention where potential revisions to the bill could provide clarity, ease of administration, and potentially address more fully the intended tax relief that the applicant is seeking. The OCFO's Office of Tax and Revenue can assist in drafting amendments. For instance, the bill makes the property's exemption applicable to the applicant by striking the name of the prior owner of the property and replacing it with the phrase Prince Hall Free and Accepted Mason and Order of the Eastern Shore Charitable Foundation, Charitable Educational Foundation, or any successor in interest. The OCFO recommends including more precise language that covers the current ownership of the property and the contemplated change in ownership to the applicant's title holding company and the activities of the title holding company, but not including any other successor owner that does not continue the current purposes and activities of the current owner or the title holding company. Extending the exemption to any successor in interest of the current owner, as the bill presently does, would potentially allow the exemption for any subsequent owner of the property, regardless of whether it was a nonprofit organization or was unrelated to the current owner. In addition, the bill currently only provides refunds for amounts paid towards tax years 2023 and 2024. The applicant made tax payments that applied to liabilities for tax year 2022 and tax year 2023. Unpaid tax liability remains for tax years 2022, 2023, and 2024. If the council would like to include retroactive forgiveness for unpaid amounts in 2023 and 2024, it should revise the bill to explicitly grant such retroactive relief. Furthermore, if the intention of the legislation is to forgive or refund all real property tax liability incurred by the applicant, it should include the properties paid and unpaid taxes for the 2022 tax year. The estimate of the exemption includes all liabilities paid and unpaid for tax years 2023 and 2024, but not taxes paid or owed for tax year 2022. Finally, it should be noted that neither Section 47-1045 nor the bill provide any exemption from deed recordation or transfer taxes that would be imposed with respect to changes in ownership of the property. The 2022 transfer of the property to the applicant resulted in the assessment of substantial taxes, and the planned transfer of the property to the title holding company would also be subject to these taxes. If the council would like to exempt those transfers of the property from deed recordation and transfer taxes, the bill should be revised accordingly. The estimated budget impact of the additional exemption would be included in a fiscal impact statement. This concludes my testimony. I am happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Fox. I really appreciate it. As usual, is thorough and really preempts my need to ask questions to hear the same thing that you just testified to. So I won't ask the few questions that I had because you addressed them in your recommendations for amendments, which was indeed a mouthful, but something that I think we're used to at the committee working with you all on. So I really appreciate OTR's offer to work with the committee staff to tighten up some of the draft language and to ask questions that will allow us to work with you to make the needed amendments. Are there any other concerns beyond what you've already testified to, which you've also provided to the committee in writing? But are there any additional concerns that you have about the bill that you might want to put onto the record today?
I have none.
Okay. The committee doesn't have any additional questions. Again, we have your written testimony. We will indeed be following up with you. I asked a couple of questions of the government witness, namely Glenn Ruffin, to try to anticipate where some of the issues might be addressed, but we may need to follow up with them as well as follow up with you all to work out any additional
Be happy to
amendments.
do
So
that.
thank you for your work on this.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Lewis George, I don't think you have any. Okay. All right. I'm going to move next to the final measure on the committee's agenda for today, which is Bill 25-433, the Glasgow Homestead Tax Abatement Amendment Act of 2023. This bill was introduced by Councilmember Lewis George on July 14th, 2023, and referred to the Committee on Business and Economic Development on September 19th, 2023. As introduced, the measure would provide an abatement of real property taxes and assessments on a distressed property located at 4404 New Hampshire Avenue Northwest in Ward 4. Councilmember Lewis George, again, is here. She provided a statement earlier today. And so we're going to call our panel of public witnesses on this measure. And if Andrew Glasker and Brian Glasker could come forward. And good morning to you both. You all could be seated. We only swear in our government witnesses. Good morning to you both, and thanks for being here this morning. I'm going to turn to you for your testimony. I don't know if you both have prepared testimony or just one of you, but you'll have 3 minutes to provide testimony. If you want to come forward, are you testifying today, sir? Yes. Okay. If you could slide your chair forward, hit the button at the base of the microphone in front of you, you'll see the light turn red, and then you can begin your testimony.
Well, first of all, my name is Brian Glasser. And we own a property that's located at 4404 New Hampshire Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C. I guess in a sense, in regards to this property, the taxes are our main concern because, like I said, at the present time, that is a property that was handed down from my late aunt that passed away. So it's a family heirloom to me and my brother that's left on the deed to the property. We're asking, if possible, that this property, as far as with the taxes, could be far as eliminated, far as pertaining to me and my brother, because this home means a lot to me and my brother. As I stated before, it's a family heirloom property, and it means a great deal more than just the value. There is a legacy behind this property. And I feel that that legacy needs to be continued from our generation down to the next generation. So in hopes of that, we're asking, if possible, that those taxes that I have built up on the property can be erased so that we can start back over and continue to get our home fixed and to keep it in the family. We're going to do everything that we can do to get that home repaired, get it back in livable state so that we can maintain our lives there. And hopefully from that standpoint, we can continue the process that we are trying to do.
Okay, does that conclude your testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Andrew Glasgow, do you intend on providing any testimony today or just answer questions if either of the council members have
Just
it?
answer questions, I think it'd be better.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
we'll make sure your mic is on when you're speaking, just to pick you up.
How do you do?
Okay, there you go.
It's on, okay.
Okay. I'm gonna actually, before I ask questions, I have some technical questions I'll ask, but I'm gonna turn to Councilmember Lewis George as the introducer of the measure to see if she has a round of questions first.
Thank you. Thank you so much for both of you being here. Just want to ask you a few questions. Right now, what is your current sort of current ability to gain income?
You asking me? Okay. At the present time, I'm in desperate need of looking for full-time employment. I am optimistic, very optimistic, that I am going to obtain employment because I am trying my best at the hardest. And my belief is if me and my brother can, as they say, combine incomes, I believe we can get that home fixed. That is the goal. We want it fixed because it is a home that needs to stay in the Glasser family. And that, like I said before, that home means a lot.
Yeah. Are there do you have any barriers to employment?
Excuse me?
Any barriers or sort of what makes getting employment difficult?
Well, the only problem that I have had in the past, I've had jobs, put it this way, I've had positions, but they haven't been full-time positions.
Mm.
That's what I've been dedicating my time to trying to do, find a full-time job.
Understood.
And basically, I need a full-time job that's going to guarantee me salary, not commission. Because I've worked jobs like that before and they haven't successfully been successful to me.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal here is to find a full-time salary position where I know specifically I have income coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And that is stable.
Yeah. And
For myself, I have it's sort of embarrassing to admit it sometimes, but I have had a really long chronic life of battling mental illness. And
I think I hate to interrupt your testimony because we definitely want to hear what you're saying, but I'm going to ask you if you're comfortable to remove your mask. If you're not comfortable, just if you could slide closer to the microphone, just to
Okay.
try to pick you up, because I'm having a hard time understanding what you're saying, and I imagine the folks at home might be
Okay.
having a hard time to
Yeah.
understand as well.
Yeah, I was just saying, it's sort of embarrassing at this point of a life to get in front of people and sort of come forward that I've worked a lot of time in my lifetime, but at the same time, I've suffered a lifetime of being chronically mentally ill. And I have 2 degrees, and I have worked in the government, and I'm on Social Security disability. And I haven't worked in probably decades. But that's why my struggle is with employment, is because I have a history of long-time mental illness that I have not really addressed in terms of the employment market for decades.
Understood. It's
So-
nothing to be embarrassed about. But I appreciate you sharing that with us and sharing that with the committee. And you spoke about this already, but what is your all's intention? What do you intend to do with the home?
Well, I have wrote in when we had a young man call us. His name was Mr. Lou, I believe his name was, from the finance office, and he asked me what was our intention if we get this bill passed. And as I had stated, is that we want to get our home renovated. It needs major renovation, but the only way to do that is going to take employment. You know, it's having jobs to qualify for loans and whatever else is available to get a home renovated. Now, we're at the senior citizen ages now, and I believe we have equity in our home where we can qualify once we get repaired for reverse mortgages. Because at this point, I'm almost 65. And there's got to be other ways to get a home renovated and work to do it. So it's 2 of us to try to get jobs now.
Yeah.
So we just need to get a home where we first can alleviate all these taxes burden from it. And then also second, prior to all this happening, I had applied for what they call the senior citizen homestead rate. But for some reason, all during COVID years, they were charging me regular homestead. This is before we got this place. So all those years, they were charging us regular homestead taxes instead of the senior disabled rate taxes. So, and then when we got displaced, we got all these fines and fees levied on us. So
Yeah.
now we have a gigantic tax bill that there's no way we'd be able to pay.
Got
So
it.
actually, we're actually hoping that the council will help us with this bill. At
Got
least
it.
get us to a point where we have some more reconsideration we could look at.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for answering questions.
Thank you both for your testimony and for really sharing with us personal information and with the committee. I will reiterate what's already been said by Councilmember Lewis George. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Frankly, your situation is likely and unfortunately not unique, as there are others across the district, I imagine, who find themselves in similar situations. So thank you for sharing that information with the committee
Okay,
this
thank
morning. How long has this home been in your family? If you could turn your mic, okay, got it.
Ooh.
It's on.
Oh, okay. To my knowledge, this home has been in our family for years. I would probably say with my late aunt who passed away back in the early 50s or 60s. This home has been in our family.
Okay.
And it's been inherited down to, I should say, myself, my brother, and my 2 sisters, which have passed. It's been a history. It's a history on this house, and this house means a lot. It means to us basically from family, what family really means and what family is made of. it means the quality that basically my aunt slaved to maintain keeping that house, going to work. I'm pretty sure she didn't want to go to work some days because she was sick.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, she got up and she went because she knew that that was her home. And I feel that now that the home is passed down to us, it still means value. And the key behind it is we just want to maintain getting the house fixed and restore that home back to the way it's supposed to be.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And as someone who's lived my entire life in the district and is a third generation of McDuffies living in a home that my grandparents bought back in 1952, also experienced a really significant fire to our home about 30 years ago, actually 30 years ago. In 1994, I understand all that, you know, goes along with trying to maintain a home and to stay there and to have not only just the financial value, but the sentimental value associated with it. There's been a tax abatement and financial analysis performed by the Office of the Chief Financial Officer on this property. Have you had an opportunity to review it?
I've actually, in a sense, sort of scanned through it a little bit, but I didn't read everything. I scanned through it a little bit. Yes.
Okay.
No, I haven't.
I don't think my brother did, but I did.
Okay. I want to ask this question. If the answer is no, you should say that. If it's yes, then, but I want to make sure, have you had a chance, I guess, Brian Glasgow, to review the conclusions of that tax abatement financial analysis, and do you agree with the conclusions there? I'll tell you what it says. So the findings for the tax abatement financial analysis are that, and this is the last sentence in the first paragraph, under findings, it says, otherwise, it is unlikely that the applicants will be able to cover the accumulated tax liability on the property, right? So they find that the abatement is financially necessary for you all to continue to retain ownership of the property. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just for the record, it looks like the information that I have, your mom passed in 2019.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And were you all, to your knowledge, up to date on the taxes up until that point, or were you already, was your mom behind on taxes?
Basically, at that point in time, we were still behind.
Okay. All right. There appear to be a series of circumstances that have contributed to you falling behind. I know that your mom, while she was alive and the owner of the property, she had the senior citizen real property tax.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
And then she passed away in 2019, as we established. The disabled property tax relief was granted to the property in 2022.
Right.
Yes, that's correct
Okay.
as well.
I had previously applied, that's what I just stated earlier. I had originally applied for the senior disabled rate right after my mother passed in 2019. But for some reason or another, when I was going to tax and revenue, they said they didn't see my application.
Okay.
I think they finally granted it in probably 22 or 23, but
Okay.
for
And-
3 or 4 tax season, they kept charging us just regular homestead.
Right. And then there was a fire next door that damaged your home.
Yes. My neighbor living next door had a major fire where it burned his home down. And whatever the situation with the fire department and other technical advisors that came through at that point, some of that damage was done by his residents or his.
But damage to your home
To my home,
was
yes.
done by the fire next door.
Yes.
Got it. And that fire was in approximately 2020?
Yes, that's correct.
Got it. And at some point subsequent to that, there was a special assessment imposed on your property by the Department of Buildings, which reclassified the property as blighted, class 4 blighted.
Yes, that's correct.
which resulted in you all paying an even higher tax rate.
Yes,
On
that's
the
correct.
property. Okay, and you also lost the homestead deduction in the process?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point, the property was determined to be uninhabitable?
That's what they say.
Well, I would like to first of all say this. We had a major gas leak. And when I guess the fire department and the chief of, I guess in a sense, of home structures came out, they decided that the home was unstable for us to maintain.
I got it.
In a home.
Okay. And then, at some point, I mean, you all have been, I guess, intermittently attempting to make partial payments on the tax bill that you owe?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, but there also have been penalties and interest that have been unpaid.
Yes, that is.
What's your understanding of how much is owed in taxes at this point?
If I have to give a rough estimate, I would probably say it's about 169,000 and some odd dollars. If I'm not
Got it.
mis-
Okay, all right. I was just trying to ask some of those questions just to make sure we had a record. The Office of the Chief Financial Officer is going to testify next. They know the numbers, and they've also, as I mentioned, provided a tax abatement financial analysis for this bill that Councilmember Lewis George introduced. Is there anything else that either of you would like to add to the record on this measure?
Well,
If you could just slide
Oh.
forward, we have the mic is already on. I just want to make sure we capture you.
one of the things that me and my brother just talking about in the lobby is that when we got displaced, they said department buildings would put up a canopy across our house to sort of protect the home from getting all the weather into it. But they never did. So for a year and a half, all the weather's just gone straight through because we had holes in the roof. So the weather's just gone straight through the house for a year and a half.
Are either of you residing in the home today?
No, but our contents have all our property, our
Okay.
clothing.
I would like to add to that as well. I didn't really understand when basically I guess you could say the person from Building and Grounds came out, they did the assessment on the property.
Mhm.
But through their assessment, no one attempted to even say, well, these individuals, these young men got belongings that they own in the home. No one did anything. They didn't put a covering or canopy over top the property to sort of stop the damage from occurring. And it's been a year and no one still has done nothing.
Okay. And just to be clear, do you all have any insurance on the property?
We had homeowners insurance, but when my mom passed, we lost it.
Got it. Okay. Anything else that you all like to add to the record? No? Okay. I'm going to turn back to Councilmember Lewis George to see if she has any additional questions or before we move to our government witnesses.
Is there any assistance sort of as you all move forward that you would like government to provide, sort of supporting you all in your next steps outside of just this legislation? What are other things that you all need support with?
Well, currently we're in what you call the rapid rehousing program.
Mm-hmm.
And we already have an end date for our programming.
That's right.
And we direly need still housing assistance, at least until the end of the year at least. Because our program was ending what, August 31st?
It actually ended as of August 31st. And at the present time, we are in I guess you could say it's more like the Office of Administrative Hearings, waiting to get a review done to find out whether or not if our subsidy in those apartments that me and my brother have will continue or will they end. We're hoping that they will have the heart to extend us, to keep us in those apartments until we can get up on our feet to substantially get into something a little bit better. So at the present time, if they make the decision that we will not be approved, we become homeless.
Again,
nowhere to go.
yes. Well, I think the council is working to try to figure out something with the executive regarding rapid rehousing. And Councilmember Robert White, who chairs our housing committee, is working diligently. So we will try to figure out what we can do to support you all in regards to housing. Would hate to see you all unhoused and out of that. With that, I have no further questions. Thank you. Thank you all for
Okay,
being
thank
here.
you.
Again, I want to thank you both for providing testimony and definitely we'll be thinking about you all as we go throughout this process. I don't have any additional questions. We're going to turn next to our government witnesses for the office of the Chief Financial Officer. And I'm going to swear you all in before you're seated and you begin your testimony. Do you each swear or affirm on the penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide to the Council of the District of Columbia and the Committee on Business and Economic Development is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you both. Be seated. Again, good morning to you, and you can begin your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman McDuffie and members of the Committee on Business and Economic Development. I am Rick Liu, Senior Policy Analyst in the Office of Finance and Treasury of the Chief Financial Officer. I am pleased to testify for the OCFO on Bill 250433, Glasgow Homestead Tax Abatement Amendment Act of 2023, known as the bill. The bill would provide a real property tax abatement or exemption for the row house located at 4404 New Hampshire Ave Northwest, known for tax assessment purposes as Lot 41, Square 3247, or the property, and owned by Andrew and Brian Glasgow, known as the applicant or the Glasgow brothers. The bill would exempt the property from all unpaid real property taxes, interest, and penalties between tax years 2019 to 2024, up to $300,000, and special assessments imposed in tax year 2023 up to $10,000, and provide the Office of Tax and Revenue the authority to extend the property tax exemption through tax year 2025 if an interest in the property is owned by one or more probate estates for distribution to beneficiaries. The Glasgow brothers resided on the property, which was owned by their family for decades and was free of any mortgage, with their mother until she passed in 2019. The Glasgow brothers began to fall behind on their property taxes, which have mounted due to a series of circumstances. The senior citizen real property tax relief was removed from the property when their mother passed, even though disabled property tax relief was granted in 2022 with prospective application only. In 2020, the property suffered severe damage from a 2-alarm fire in an adjoining row house, and they did not have insurance proceeds to repair it. The Glasgow brothers continued to live in the damaged row house until 2023, when it was determined to be uninhabitable by the DC Department of Buildings due to structural instability and poor environmental conditions. This resulted in a special assessment imposed on the property by the DC Department of Buildings, a reclassification of the property as blighted under the Class 4 tax rate, resulting in a higher tax rate, and losing the homestead deduction in the process, and moreover, required the Glasgow brothers to vacate the property. Although the Glasgow brothers have made partial payments towards their taxes since 2019, the property has accumulated unpaid taxes, penalties, and interest, and its current tax liability is estimated to be over $170,000. The Glasgow brothers currently lack permanent shelter and are negotiating an extension to a rapid rehousing program where they have spent the last 13 months. Aside from Andrew Glasgow's Social Security disability income, Neither Andrew Glasker nor Brian Glasker have any other source of income, and neither is employed. The Glasker brothers both seek employment and to earn a steady income to have the opportunity to qualify for a renovation loan to repair the damage to the property. Should that occur, they would be able to leave their transitional housing arrangement and move back into the property and be able to contemplate using the equity in their home to support their living expenses through a reverse mortgage or a sale. The OCFO interviewed the Glasker brothers regarding their income and net assets and reviewed their bank and mobile payment statements for verification. Information provided indicate that the sole source of income between the Glasker brothers is Andrew's Social Security disability income, which he collects monthly. Aside from the equity the Glasker brothers have in the property, their only net assets are the balances in their bank and mobile payment accounts, which are small and insufficient to support payments at a level which would allow them to pay off all delinquent and future tax liabilities. Should the Glasker brothers find employment, there still remains significant risk they will not be able to cover the delinquent taxes, obtain a renovation loan, and cover living and shelter expenses all at the same time. For these reasons, the OCFO finds the real property tax abatement is financially necessary for the applicant to retain ownership of the property and provide them with an opportunity to renovate it as a long-term housing option they can also use for financial support. While a separate fiscal impact statement will be prepared, the estimated value of the abatement is $204,168 during the financial plan period, which includes the current amount of unpaid real property taxes, special assessment, and accumulated interest and penalties escalated through tax year 2025. However, this does not include the estimated value of the real property tax liability for tax year 2025 of $71,840, as it is uncertain whether the conditions for receiving an abatement of 2025 taxes, including the opening of probate estates for deceased co-tenants, will be met. The estimated value of both these abatements is $276,007. We recommend an amendment to the bill for clarity and ease of administration. The council should determine whether the property should be granted an abatement of 2025 real property taxes, rather than conditioning this benefit on the holding of interest in the properties by probate estates and the discretion of OCFO's Office of Tax and Revenue, or OTR. If council determines it will not grant the abatement for 2025, this provision in the bill should be deleted. On the other hand, if council determines that it will grant the abatement for 2025, the bill should be amended to change the end date of the exemption from 2024 to 2025. OTR would like to note that the bill, as drafted, does not affect the property's Class 4 blighted property tax classification. The property will continue to be taxed at the applicable Class 4 rate beginning for any year in which the property tax abatement does not apply. Further, so long as the property remains in a Class 4 status and is unoccupied by the owners, the property cannot qualify for the homestead deduction, senior citizen, or disabled property tax relief. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. This concludes my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Liu. There's a lot here, a lot of layers to this matter. And I appreciate the recommendations at the end of your testimony for amending the bill for clarity and ease of administration. I won't rehash all of it. I'm glad that the author of the bill, Councilmember Lewis George, is here to also hear those recommendations. Maybe if you could just take a really brief moment to explain the reasoning behind the recommendation that you made at the end of your testimony. As well, your testimony noted that the bill does not affect the property's current Class 4 blighted property tax classification. Is that something, I don't know, is that something that we can actually amend to address as well? I guess we could.
I think I will pass it along to my colleague here, Basil Ficino.
The issue of whether or not a property is class 4 is made by the Department of Buildings. So you may want to consult with the Department of Buildings if you want to take any action with respect to the classification of the
Yeah.
property.
Yeah, it's kind of, I didn't mean to put you all on the spot. I suspect, given our authority as a council, we could legislate to address this. It's just a matter of what the language looks like. I don't have any additional questions. I just want to note, this is just a really, really unfortunate situation for Andrew and Brian Glasker. As I noted to them, though, I imagine if we were to make a call across the District of Columbia, they would not be the only family finding themselves in a really unfortunate situation like the one they find themselves. Sadly, there are all too many families who, for one reason or another, one tragedy or another, find themselves in similar circumstances as they do. And I appreciate, as a former ward council member, Councilmember Lewis George's attempt to really address the Glaskers' situation for their home. Being here my entire life and seeing people come in and out of communities, losing homes that families had for generations is really painful. And to the extent there's a way to help, and perhaps the committee give thought to a wider, a broader approach to trying to help this, we continue to do that. That's something that's important for me as a DC native, as the chair of the Committee on Business and Economic Development. But in terms of the matter before us now, Bill 25-433, obviously want to work with Councilmember Lewis George and OCFO to see what, if anything, we may be able to do to address this situation. I'll turn to Councilmember Lewis George to see if she has any questions or comments for your office.
Thank
Councilmember Lewis
you.
George.
Yeah, first I just wanted to say thank you all very much for your fidelity here, your patience here. I know if you work with several members of my staff, from Will Singer to Jim Lewis to Emily Tatro, this has been sort of, our office has sort of tried to support in any way we can, and you all have understanding the position you're in as OCFO. I just appreciate your willingness to give the information that's necessary and be patient with receiving the information that you needed to receive to be able to do your work. One of my questions is sort of has the district granted tax abatements in similar situations in the past that you know of, or anything close to sort of what we're doing here before your recollection?
Not to my recollection. I think all these, every sort of tax abatement's a little bit different, although, there are similarities for sure. But, I think, if the question is, have we granted them to sort of individual constituents so that they could, maintain and keep ownership of their property, then the answer would be yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And we do similar things, not only just for individuals, but sometimes we do them for businesses and different entities as well.
That is also yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you had any sort of future, sort of any other recommendations are there any other recommendations you all have that you have not mentioned already as far as positive interventions here? I do share joint oversight over Department of Building with Chairman Mendelson, so I will be able to go to him and DOB and have those conversations. Are there any other recommendations moving forward, that steps that we should be taking with any other sort of entities or agencies?
Not for me.
Okay, awesome. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis George, and thank you to the witnesses for their testimony and work on this measure. I'd like to thank everyone who testified on all of the measures on the committee's agenda today, particularly the Glasker brothers, Andrew and Brian, for sharing their personal stories about their circumstances. As a reminder, those interested in submitting written testimony for the record may do so until Monday, September 23rd, 2024 at 5 p.m. Submissions should be uploaded via the hearing management system on the council's website at dccouncil.gov. There being no further business before the committee, this marks the end of today's public hearing. The time is 11:39 a.m. and this hearing is adjourned.